Hi everyone. So every way of conveying information and trying to convince people has a natural enemy. It's just like a cat and a mouse, a wolf and a sheep. The enemy of data is the anecdote. Why is that? An anecdote is a story. It connects emotionally. It is vivid. It is very intuitive, and it's exactly the opposite of what data gives you. Data is generalizable. It is true across different stories, across different people, across different data points, but it does not connect emotionally with people. So when you present data, you have to be able to handle the anecdote that goes against your data. Even though it's just one extreme case, it will still resonate with your audience a lot more than you think it will. So this video is about dealing with the counter example, the anecdote that seems to go against your data. How do you deal with it? Stick around to find out. Bonus. Here's how to deal with the biggest enemy of data. What's the biggest enemy of data? It's the anecdote, like a compelling personal story, individual story of somebody that happens to contradict the main thrust of your data. Now, these stories are completely non-representative, but they're also super appealing. They're vivid, they connect emotionally, they fit the way we evolved to learn. I mean, most of our history, people learn from each other through stories. And so you might have complete lack of morale, burnout, terrible environment in your company, but because your boss knows somebody who's very happy and extremely committed to the company, that one anecdote about that one person is very hard to ignore. So we have to deal with that somehow. It might seem unfair. We collected thousands of data points, and this one data point that has a story attached to it can destroy our case. But that's just the way it is. So how do we deal with this? Unfortunately, the straightforward answer doesn't quite work. So you might say, let's just fall back to first principles and say, well, listen, decisions based on n equals 1 are not good, whereas we have n equals thousands or million data points, and so we should trust large representative samples because they're representative, and relying on one data point is unreliable. This is true, of course, but it would only work on people super committed to looking at data and having data be the only deciding factor, and even they would have to work a little bit to ignore appealing anecdotes. Instead, there are more effective ways to deal with counterexamples or counter-anecdotes. The first one is acknowledging that they are counterexamples, acknowledging that upfront, and framing them as valuable learning opportunities within the larger context of your data. For example, you can say, I know many of us know Jim, who's super motivated to work in a company, who is dancing to work every day, how happy he is. And that story is an important signal and a great learning opportunity for us to know what's special about Jim compared to everybody else. At the same time, when we look at the full picture, most of our employees are not like Jim, where we have 60% who mark high or severe when we ask them about heavy workload and burnout. The key with doing this is acknowledge the anecdote, acknowledge its impact, but then invite people to say, that's great, let's learn from it because the broader pattern is not in line with this anecdote. Doing this validates the power of the anecdote, but then also pivots back to your data without appearing defensive. Another way to deal with anecdotes is to turn it into a hypothesis that you test with your data. So in a way, you're starting to treat the anecdote as a starting point instead of an end point. So that story of Jim, who's super happy, is really interesting. So let's use it to ask the question, what's special about Jim? Perhaps he has a lighter workload than most of us. Perhaps he has better support from his manager. Perhaps he has a different role, maybe he changes roles over time compared to the rest of the data. The point of this is to transform the counterexample into an exception that we have to explain with the broader data, the broader picture that we get from our data. And so we're treating that anecdote instead of a done deal conclusion, and rather as a question to be answered with our data. The third way to handle anecdotes is to show the distribution of the data in the entire group as opposed to just the averages or the summary statistics. So this one actually leans on the power of data to provide a general picture of what's going on. Anecdotes are often at the tail ends of the distribution. So we can use a histogram to show the distribution and visualize it for people, and then mark where we think the anecdote lies, which is going to be in one of the tails. So we can say, here's the distribution of burnout ratings in a recent survey that we did with our employees. So notice the right tail. This is severe cases. It's much bigger, much fatter than we'd expect from a random variation. We still have the left tail. This is where Jim is. He's super happy. And we all know he's sitting on the left tail. But the mass of the data tells us a different story, and we have to ask, how do we get everybody to that left tail? So it's no longer a left tail. This gives you a visual representation of where the anecdote is compared to everything else. And it's just as accessible, it's just as clear as the anecdote itself. Another way to deal with anecdotes is to quantify the downside of relying on an anecdote that might be misleading. So we can say, if we accept Jim's story and think that this is the story of the average employee in our company, and then we'd say that we don't have a burnout problem, and if we're wrong about that, then we have over 500 employees who are at risk of leaving us because they've told us over and over again in their surveys that things need to change. So if we have even a fraction of those people leave us, it's going to cost us a lot of money to replace them. So this is an example of presenting the downside of a mistake because of an anecdote. The reason it works is that it gives you the immediacy and the vividness of the anecdote, because people are attuned to negative consequences, and by providing the downside, you're kind of competing with the anecdote on its own terms. Another way to handle contradictory anecdotes is to collect anecdotes that support your data yourself. So yes, there's Jim who's super happy in the company, but you can also find Bob who's super depressed with the company. What you'll have here is a competition between different anecdotes, and you can present it as, let's figure out a way to decide which anecdote is more representative, which of course you will answer with your data. The data in this way can be a tiebreaker between competing anecdotes that are equally appealing, equally vivid. Now, if you do this, if you rely on anecdotes of your own, still be respectful of the other side's anecdote and acknowledge that it's relevant. The idea is not to battle people head on, but to convince them that you are right. And to do that, you have to turn them into allies. All you're doing is you're presenting an anecdote that's of equal value, that shows a different story than whoever disagrees with you, and then you're using the data as a tiebreaker. Until next time, see you later.